So we have Bill Van Eman, who's our commercial lender based in College Station. And then we also have Randall Rojas, who's our one of our commercial bankers in Houston, but he's also our CRA director for the South Texas region. So with that, I will let them both introduce themselves. So Bill's going to do the English, and then we're going to have Randall translate in Spanish, as we know that some of you guys are bilingual. So definitely, I guess, Bill, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, thanks for that, Lacey. Like she said, I'm Bill Van Eman. I've been in the area a little over 20 years now, which seems to have gone by in just a flash. I used to be on the Habitat board and worked with the Habitat staff, who's a great bunch of folks, and I think all of y'all will enjoy working with them over the process. So I will lead it off. My good compatriot over here, Randall Rojas, will be translating and probably will say smarter things than I do. So,
real quick, Randall, do you want to say a few things about yourself before we get into the presentation?
Yeah, so obviously Randall Rojas, work here in Houston with Hancock Whitney and the commercial lending team, as well as have some responsibilities in the community with the bank. So just happy to be here. For those of you that kind of needed a Spanish translation, if you want to just send a separate email or a message or something like that, if I'm speaking too fast, I tend to speed up in Spanish. So if I'm speaking too fast or you're not getting something like that, just let me know and I'll be happy to repeat myself.
All right. And if you guys have any questions, we have the chat feature here. If you guys want to, if you don't want to get off of mute and ask your question, feel free to use the chat. We'll be monitoring that. And we want you guys to engage and ask questions. So, all right. So let's kick it off with some debt. All right.
okay, so probably the first thing we need to do is understand what debt is, and the difference between debt and credit. And this may be the best thing we tell you all day. Understanding your debt is your first step to manage it. So a debt is a loan of some kind that you have incurred and you have to pay back. Credit is your history about how you have paid back your debts over time.
I'm putting these definitions in here.
Oh, no, you're good.
That way.
So if you can hit that next slide.
Yeah. All right.
And if you guys, if you need the Spanish translation, can you just raise your hand on the chat or send it to me? I just want to make sure that we cover it thoroughly. And then if I need to address you specifically, I can. I'm typing a message up too in the chat just to make sure.
So what you do is you use your credit to have the ability to borrow money. People who loan money want to know that it's going to be paid back. And so they check your credit to incur your debt. If you'll go to the next slide, Lace.
All right.
So now the next step is what's a creditor and a debtor. So the creditor is the person who has loaned the money, and the debtor is the person who has borrowed the money. It doesn't matter if it's a credit card or a bank loan or a car loan. Those definitions work the same way every single time. So Randall and I are both lenders. Most of what we do is business lending, but it applies the same, whether or not you're borrowing for your house or your car, or even on a credit card that you might use to buy groceries or appliances or something like that. All right, I think we can go to the next one.
All right.
So to understand what you you understand your debt, you need to know a few things that are specific to your loan. Who you borrowed the money from, how much you owe them, what the payments are. Generally, those payments are monthly. What day those payments are due. And then some other facts about your debt, like how long is it going to be before you pay them back and what the interest rate is. There's also late fees that you need to be aware of so that if you do miss a payment, you'll know what the additional fee charge will be. Some loans have a balloon payment. They don't pay off in full in a specific amount of time. There is a large payment at the end. So you may pay $300 a month for 2 years, but at the end of that 2 years, you owe a larger amount than $200 or $300 to pay that debt off. Some lenders will charge prepayment penalties, meaning they want you to pay it off on schedule every month. And if you pay it off early, there's a fee. I believe most consumer debt doesn't have a prepayment penalty, but you need to be aware of it in case it does. So I think we can go to the next one. Right?
And let me chime in real quick. I'm just going to go in. If you can go back, just Lacey, I'll translate it quick, just in case anybody looks at the recording later. Lo que estamos hablando aquí hoy es de deudas y crédito. Las deudas que usted tiene para sus diferentes cuentas, que son bancos, tarjetas de crédito, préstamos, hay dos diferentes cosas. Está el principal y está el interés. El interés es lo que se paga al banco. El principal es lo que debe el banco. Son cosas muy importantes que tiene que aprenderse usted para cuando tiene que tener una deuda con los bancos. Okay, go ahead.
Very well said, Randall. I think go back one, Lacey. Oh, sorry. I was wrong. You were on the right one. So most people borrow money to pay for an asset they can't pay for out of their everyday income. They either are trying to buy a house or a car. Those are assets that you buy that are very common to incur debt on. Or you need to pay for medical bills that have occurred, some kind of emergency that may have happened. Like with this latest freeze, a lot of people pipes break and they incurred some damage to their home. They may have to pay for the pipe to be fixed or the damage to the home to be fixed before they can get the insurance money to pay. And that you may incur some debt because some folks have a time where they can't pay all their bills, and so they have to go borrow money to pay the bills, and then over time they pay back that loan. You also have incurred debt sometimes to buy stuff that you want. I think a good example is a lot of people will upgrade the appliances in their home, the refrigerator, the stove, the TV, and they'll buy that. And it may be several $1,000s when you buy it, and you'll spread those payments out over time by getting a loan to do that.
Algunas de las cosas que ustedes pueden comprar son casas, carros, tarjetas de crédito, obviamente, algo para emergencia. Hay dos diferentes categorías, son activos y pasivos. Los activos son los que tienen ustedes derecho a tener, los que les pertenecen a ustedes. Los pasivos son cosas que tienen deudas, como una casa, como un carro. Si no lo ha terminado de pagar, se llaman cosas pasivas. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Liz. So when you get a debt, it's called obligating future income. Basically, what you're promising to do is the salary or the income you get in the next 1, 2, 3, 30 years, you will use to pay back this loan. Most places that you borrow money from charge interest and sometimes fees until you can pay the loan back. Hopefully, if you pay it off on time, you make your payment on time every month, there are no fees attached. But the interest is the cost that the lender charges for you to borrow that money. They've given you the money up front and you paying them back over time. That interest is their revenue from that loan.
En esta pantalla lo que estamos discutiendo son el income pasivo y el income que viene en el futuro. O sea, income es sus ingresos. Sus ingresos del futuro generalmente son los que tienen el futuro cuando va a comprar una casa, un tipo de carro y le puede impactar hasta en el futuro. Bueno.
So a good way to assess what kind of debt you have and to figure out where you sit is to make a schedule of it. And if you'll see on this slide, there's several little categories you put the information in. Who you owe the money to, how much you owe today, what the payment is, whether it's a monthly payment or an annual payment, quarterly payment, what the due date for that payment is, and then on there, the interest rate, and maybe some other notes like when the loan will mature. A credit card is an open-ended debt, so there's not a date that it will ever mature. You can borrow against it and pay it back, and borrow against it and pay it back. But a car loan or a house loan will have a fixed amount of time that you're supposed to pay that money back. As Lacey typed in the chat, and you can see up there, you can visit annualcreditreport.com and find out what debts are out there that you have borrowed money for or incurred, and it will give you a lot of this information that you can use.
Una de las cosas más importantes que usted puede hacer para su crédito es obtener una copia de su crédito. Como ven en esta pantalla, pueden ir a annualcreditreport.com y ahí les pueden dar una copia gratis. Cada persona tiene derecho a una copia gratis por año para que usted pueda entender qué tipo de cosas tiene en su crédito, ya sean sus tarjetas de crédito, su casa, sus carros. Es muy importante de saber, porque cada vez que usted aplica para una cuenta nueva, es lo que están viendo los bancos, los diferentes lugares donde usted aplica para crédito, están mirando el reporte de crédito. Bueno.
Okay, Les. So, like we said, this is a very good idea here. Understanding what your debt is will be the first step to managing it. If you know what your debts are, you can figure out how to pay them every month and what, measure it against your income.
You can use those tools as well on in your participant guide for those worksheets. Those are helpful.
So here's how debt works. And there's a lot of terms out there that we'll go over in this section. Understanding how it works will help you make better decisions about debt. And please don't ever feel like Randall and I have all the answers, but we'll certainly stop and help answer any questions you might have while we do this for a living. We know that not everybody has all this information. So like Lacey had said, if you have a question, please let us know. So if you have a loan with collateral, meaning if you have used an asset to help you get the loan, then you have what's called a secured loan. Example of this is the car. There's three parts to it. There's the principal, which is how much you borrowed, the fact that it is secured, and then what the interest rate on that loan is.
Hay dos diferentes tipos de préstamos. Está uno que es asegurado y un préstamo que es sin asegurar. Un préstamo asegurado es como una casa, un carro, algo que tenga colateral, que llamamos en el banco, colateral, algo que se pueda ver. Y un préstamo sin asegurar es como una tarjeta de crédito, una línea abierta. Hay tres partes. Está el principal, que es el balance del préstamo, de un préstamo asegurado. Está el porcentaje que le cobran por año por usar ese préstamo y está el porcentaje que es el préstamo anual.
So the next step you can figure out is how much you can borrow. And part of that involves how much the loan will be for, the principal, what the interest you'll pay along with that principal, and then whatever fees are incurred. Sometimes there's fees to get the loan to start off with, and sometimes there's fees along the way, like a late fee if you miss a payment.
Algo muy importante a entender son los cobros que le hacen por los diferentes tipos de préstamos. Como estamos viendo en esta pantalla, está el principal, el interés y los cobros. Es algo que tiene que entender en todas partes porque si los cobros son muchos, a veces no vale la pena tener la tarjeta de crédito, el tipo de cuenta. Entonces, poner atención a lo que es los cobros por el principal o por el préstamo que está pidiendo. Okay.
So then the next step is, what is your cost to borrow this money? And that's figured out by two main factors, and that is whatever the current balance of the note is, and then what the interest rate is. Now, your credit, like we discussed earlier, which was your ability to borrow money, can influence how much people will let you borrow and how much they will charge you for interest.
En esta pantalla lo que estamos viendo son los diferentes partes del crédito, que es el balance, el interés y el crédito. Obviamente tiene que entender cada parte cuando usted obtiene un préstamo para que no se le olvide entender cómo trabaja cada parte del préstamo. Go ahead.
Bill and Randall, what advice would you give these guys about interest rates? Because, interest rates are everywhere when you want to, open up a credit card or, have any kind of loan. What kind of advice would you give these folks?
So
because that's a big part of it.
Yeah. So the best advice I give anybody who asks me about their ability to borrow money is that their credit history is the single most important factor. Paying your bills on time every month is the biggest factor on how much people will loan you later on. The next biggest factor is your income. And if you prove that you can pay your bills on time every month, people will be very willing to loan you money because they know that you make it a priority to pay them back.
La pregunta que hizo Lacey es, ¿qué tipo de consejos tenemos Bill y yo para darle a las personas que están tratando de obtener crédito? Lo que dijo Bill y también lo que voy a decir yo es el historial, o sea, su historia de crédito. Cada vez que usted pide algo prestado, ya sea una tarjeta de crédito, en carros, lo que sea, es bueno pagarlo a tiempo y cada mes, porque eso le va a estar enseñando como el historial. Y entre más historial tenga usted, mejor crédito puede obtener. También los pagos, hacerlos a tiempo, si puede pagarlo más, si puede pagarlo más rápido, tratar de hacer eso lo más posible. Bueno.
So the next set of terms that they want to that we discuss here is it's called a credit agreement, and basically it's an agreement between you and the lender that discusses the specifics of you borrowing from them. There's a pre-approved maximum amount that you can borrow, and that doesn't matter if it's a credit card or a car loan or a house loan or a loan for an ATV or anything else. Loans that have a short term to them and are consumer credit are called installment loans. And they generally have a 3 to 5 year window that you pay it back. A revolving credit amount is like a credit card where you can a pre-approved amount, you can borrow and you can pay it back and borrow again. The third one that they discuss here is a lease agreement. And although people oftentimes don't think of a lease as a loan, it has a lot of the same characteristics. And you are obligated for a period of time to make a certain payment on a schedule.
Lo que está viendo en la pantalla en este momento son los diferentes tipos de préstamos. Como expliqué antes, tiene que ver mucho sobre qué tipo de préstamo es. El primero, que es un installment loan, es un préstamo asegurado. Ejemplos de este préstamo son casas, son carros, algo que usted puede pagar el principal y también el interés. El segundo, que es un revolving credit, es un crédito que no es asegurado, como una tarjeta de crédito, por ejemplo. Eso no tiene nada añadido al préstamo. Es como un crédito que le están dando y no tiene, es una cantidad, pero no tiene nada físico añadido a eso. El último es un lease agreement. El lease agreement es como algo temporal, como si están alquilando un apartamento, una casa. Eso es un ejemplo de ese tipo de préstamo. Go ahead.
The next set of terms has to do with what your cost of your loan is on an annual basis, what it costs you every year, whatever fees are incurred, and then what the interest rate is, obviously based on what it costs you every year. And then if there's any kind of adjustment that's involved, sometimes loans will change interest rate in the middle of the loan. That will change how much interest you have to pay.
Lo más importante de ver en esta pantalla es el donde dice B, el ajuste anual. Muchas personas se metieron en problemas hace años porque los préstamos que obtuvieron, ya sea de casas, más que todo en casas, pero otras cosas, el ajuste anual, o sea, el porcentaje que le están cobrando, cambia a mitad de año o cada 3 meses. Entonces es muy importante asegurarse y estar informado de qué tipo de interés están pidiendo. Los préstamos que son grandes, más grandes, como un carro, como una casa, tienen un ajuste fijo. Y los préstamos como una tarjeta de crédito tienen un ajuste que es variable. Eso cambia, depende de cómo está el mercado. Pero en los préstamos grandes es bueno asegurarse que el porcentaje anual sea fijo. Go ahead.
So our next set of terms has to do with same kinds of credit, but they're within that agreement. They'll have some terms in there about how much you pay every month and how long you will pay it. You have a revolving credit, which we've discussed is like a credit card or some other lines where you can pay it up and pay it down, borrow it up and pay it down. The principal is the maximum amount you can borrow. And of course, the installment loan is one that has a regularly scheduled set of payments. Most of the time, these are monthly, like a car note or a home loan. And so they will tell you over the next 3 years, you're going to give us so many dollars every month on the 1st or the 5th or the 10th or whatever date that it's due.
Como les acabo de explicar, el crédito que no es fijo y el crédito que es fijo. La primera que usted ve es que el revolving credit es un crédito que no está fijo. O sea, el interés cambia con cada pago y el pago también cambia con cada pago. Cada vez que usted paga la tarjeta de crédito, el principal se reduce un poco, pero la mayoría de su pago va al interés. Entonces, por eso dije que es muy bueno asegurarse qué tipo de préstamo tiene, o asegurado o no asegurado. Go ahead.
So there are some loans that don't have any collateral, or you haven't pledged something to the loan. And a lot of these for consumers are the most obvious kind is the credit card. That credit card company loans you however much they give you, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever it is. And they don't ask for anything in return, like a car or your house or any other kind of collateral that they would help secure the loan with. Your home mortgage, like you're going to get from Habitat for Humanity, hopefully, that will be secured with your house. That is a loan with collateral.
Los diferentes tipos que estamos viendo aquí es de colateral. El colateral es algo como su casa. Lo que estamos viendo en el ABC es el préstamo asegurado, el B es préstamo sin asegurar y el tercero que es la hipoteca, que es su préstamo de casa. Lo que estamos discutiendo aquí es qué tipo de colateral tiene cada préstamo añadido a él. Como un préstamo sin asegurar es como una tarjeta de crédito, como había explicado. Un préstamo asegurado es algo que tenga colateral añadido al préstamo. Go ahead.
So let's go over installment loans real quick, because I think these are fairly simple and I think most of us will be familiar with them. They'll give you a principal amount, which is what you borrowed, and they'll give you a term, meaning how long you have to principal with interest. Normally, the payment is the same every period that you have to make a payment. I would say for the vast majority of these loans, the payment is due monthly. And so they'll give you a note and they'll say you owe us $325.11 every month. And you're going to pay us back over 3 years. And at the end of that 3 years, you will have paid off that note and you will have repaid all the principal plus the interest.
Otra vez estamos un poco discutiendo las diferentes partes del préstamo, que es lo que había explicado. El principal es el monto fijo que usted obtiene al principio. El término es a cuántos años o el plazo del préstamo puede pagar ese principal. Usualmente son las mismas cosas del principal, obviamente, y después el término es a cuántos años. Entonces, para darles un ejemplo, una casa usualmente se compra a 30 años. Ese sería el término o el plan. Y si usted compra la casa por $100,000, ese va a ser el principal. Ahora, por cada mes que usted está pagando esa casa, le van a cobrar el interés. Entonces, al final de los 30 años, va a pagar más que el principal. La diferencia es el interés. Y eso es lo que cobran los bancos o las diferentes casas de hipoteca por prestarle a usted la plata o el dinero. Go ahead.
With revolving credit, this is like the credit card. The lender will give you a fixed amount that they'll let you borrow. That may be $500 or it may be $5,000. And what they'll let you do is you can go and charge something to the credit card, and then they'll send you a bill. And the payment amount that they will require is based on how much you have borrowed. They'll give you a minimum payment amount, which is 1 to 5% of the outstanding balance. And that payment will be applied toward your debt and your interest. If you pay more, you will pay that debt off sooner. If you pay less, like the minimum every month, you will pay more interest and it will take you longer to pay it off. Your goal should be to pay the debt off as soon as you can within your income limit. You don't want to incur more debt to have to pay off the credit card. You want to do it in a manageable fashion.
Algo muy importante reconocer de esta pantalla particular es el tipo de crédito. El revolving credit, que eso se llama un crédito giratorio, que da vuelta, como una tarjeta de crédito. Ahora, cada vez que usted obtiene una tarjeta de crédito, el pago mínimo de la tarjeta, la mayoría de ese pago va para el interés, no llega al principal, que es lo que debe la tarjeta de crédito. Por eso muchas veces cuando tenemos una tarjeta de crédito y aunque pagamos lo mínimo, usted nunca va a ver el balance disminuir. Entonces es muy importante no solo pagar el mínimo, pero tratar de pagar más y terminar la deuda lo más pronto posible. Así una deuda giratoria no se mantiene tan alta mucho tiempo. Go ahead.
So we're going to do a little example about how an installment loan works. And in this case, Zoe is going to be our test candidate. She knows that she needs to improve her credit score. And so her bank offers her a credit building loan. I know early in my career, there were a lot of banks that did this. I don't know how prevalent it is anymore, but in this case, they're going to let Zoe borrow $1,000 and she's going to pay it back over a year in 12 monthly payments, 12% interest rate. All of her payments will be reported to the 3 nationwide credit bureaus. And as long as she makes her payment on time and in the amount that she's supposed to, it will improve her credit. Zoe thinks this is going to be a very good deal for her. And if she can make her payments on time, it will do a lot to improve her credit score.
Esto es un ejemplo de un tipo de préstamos que muchas veces hay las credit unions y hay bancos que todavía ofrecen este tipo de préstamo. Se llama un préstamo para construir su crédito. Y la manera como trabaja es el banco, la credit union, te va a dar un monto de un préstamo. Va a servir como una cuenta de ahorros. Entonces, digamos que le dan $1,000 a usted. No le van a dar los $1,000, sino que le van a dar un plazo de 6 a 12 meses, donde usted puede hacer pagos mensuales y cuando llega al monto de $1,000, sí le pueden dar los $1,000 a usted. Pero durante ese proceso, lo que hace el banco o la credit union es que va a reportar esos pagos como si tuviera un préstamo y así va a crecer su historial del crédito, como habíamos discutido en las páginas anteriores. Go ahead.
Anybody have questions about Zoe before we move on? What are y'all's thoughts about her, her proposal for the, the credit building loan? What do y'all think? You think it's a good deal? Anybody want to put in the chat or let us know what they think?
And I'll chime in real quick and say, guys, if you guys, most folks on the that we've been able to teach, have some type of credit. But if even if you have younger kids that are just turning 18 or somebody that may have, bad credit, an installment loan like this, a credit builder loan, is probably one of the fastest ways for you to restore your credit and to build the credit back up. So even if you've had late payments or charge-offs or whatever you may have had in the past, if you find an institution, usually credit unions that offer this type of loan, it's a way to build it, because there's 2 types of reporting that's done. You have an installment loan reporting and you have a revolving line reporting. Those 2 reportings go into your credit report. Not many people get the installment hit on their credit because it's tougher to get larger loans, like a car, like a house, like something with large collateral. So this is one of the best ways, I think, to really reestablish your credit.
I agree with Randall 100%. Especially for those that are just starting out with credit. So Zoe learns about doing a revolving credit in a similar way. She uses her credit card and buys something that costs $1,000, and her credit card has an annual 12% interest rate. She doesn't spend anything else on the credit card, and she pays the minimum monthly balance of $50 every month. I think you can, if Lacey can scroll down a little bit, you can kind of see the difference.
Unfortunately, it's just cut off on the slide, but if y'all look at
that's
this
too bad.
slide, y'all can see the rest of the chart of the table.
Yeah. So on the installment loan, they charged payment of $80.85, and that paid it off in 12 equal payments. In this case, Zoe just paid the minimum every month, and as you can see, it was $50 the first month and $48 the second month. So she wasn't making near as much progress toward paying that principal off. While she's making on-time payments every month, it's not doing quite as much to get that debt paid off.
En este ejemplo, lo que estamos viendo es un poco de lo que estaba hablando en en las pantallas anteriores, que es cada vez que usted obtenga un préstamo, un monto, no importa la cantidad, mientras que usted pague el mínimo, nunca va a terminar de pagar ese monto porque el banco o la institución le va a agregar lo que es el interés, nada más por mantener este tipo de préstamo. Entonces es bueno tratar de pagar más del mínimo para pagar el préstamo lo más antes posible y así evitar que el banco o la institución le cobre muchos intereses. Go ahead.
So a lot of loans will have fees attached to them. Some will be fees to make the loan to start off with. Some will be fees that you incur maybe for being late. And then some may be a fee, like we talked about earlier, if you pay the loan off early. One thing you need to understand is what kind of fees you are going to be charged to get the loan, and then what fees you might be charged to get to have the loan. A late fee would be one that you might be charged, whereas a fee, like an origination fee to get the loan, would be one that you're going to get either way.
Y como mencioné antes, muy importante que usted entienda bien los cobros asociados con los préstamos que está pidiendo, porque a veces son préstamos pequeños y los cobros son muy grandes. Entonces no valía la pena obtener el préstamo si los cobros son la mitad o más de lo que están pidiendo.
Here it talks about the prepayment penalty again. Now, everybody would encourage paying off loans early if you can, especially if there's no fee, because it reduces the amount of interest you pay, and it allows you to pay the note off early. For instance, in Zoe's earlier loan, she was getting charged $88, $85 every month. If she had paid $100 every month, that extra $11.15 would have gone toward the principal. She would have paid that loan off earlier, thereby paying less interest. There may be fees for early payment, so check on that, but most consumer loans don't have those. They're happy to see you pay it off on time every month or maybe a few months early if possible.
Otra vez estamos hablando un poco de los que son cobros por los préstamos. Una categoría muy importante de lo que es lo que está aprendiendo hoy, los cobros del préstamo asociados con cualquier cosa que usted obtenga.
Okay, so explain to you a little bit about how debt works so you can make good decisions about it, and you understand a little bit better how the process works. Does anybody have any questions at this time? So maybe you picked one up as we were going along.
Maybe if you guys could just give any last tips about, ways to help, ways to help kind of control your debt. Anything you've learned, anything you can share.
The biggest thing I tell people, especially those who are trying to work on their credit, is in addition to making your on-time payment every month, don't treat your credit card like a endless source of money for you to go buy stuff. That interest rate will calculate every month, and if you can only make the minimum payment, even though you wanted that whatever you purchased, that interest occurs every month. And if you don't have a set schedule for paying it off, it's going to really add up in a hurry. If you need to go buy a washer and dryer, or a TV, or a couch or something, and you put it on a credit card, figure out, okay, I can pay this off in 6 payments, or I can pay this off in 9 payments, and stick to that schedule. First of all, it helps out your credit score because it reduces the amount, it increases the amount of availability you have on your credit card. And 2, you get that note paid off, or you get that debt paid off, and on a schedule that that proves you can repay your debt when other lenders look at it.
Sí, nada más tocar un poco de lo que habló Bill. Tratar de considerar cada vez que usted obtiene un préstamo, cuánto va a durar pagando ese préstamo. Si usted sabe que va a durar mucho tiempo tratando de pagar ese préstamo, trate de estar informado de los cobros, del interés, de cuánto puede pagar más por mes para tratar de cancelar ese préstamo más antes. No siempre es bueno tener muchos préstamos abiertos a largo plazo si le están cobrando mucho de interés y también cobros. Go ahead.
It sounds
All
like
right.
Randall says it.
All right. Well, this concludes the debt part. I'm about to switch to the credit part. So bear with me just a second. We will.
Would you mind if we just take a little 5-minute break to give
Sure. Yeah. Go
everyone?
for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So we'll just take a 5-minute break. We'll be back 5 minutes, 6:47. It's right now it's 6:42.